So, when was the last time you did something for the first time? Darius Rucker, a Grammy Award winner with both a rock band, Hootie and the Blowfish, and as a solo country music artist, poses an interesting question. It's an idea worth thinking about, and it's a notion that's particularly germane in the context of this symposium. It's also a concept I'd like you to reflect upon as you indulge me ever so briefly over the next few minutes. I'm going to offer a few perspectives today on the subjects of transformation and innovation. Perspectives about how a transformation process happened at Northern Trust. Perspectives encompassing how we linked humanity or emotional intelligence and our innovation process, and ultimately, perspectives on a few of our learnings across the journey. Before I get into the learnings, however, I want to challenge you to consider a few questions. How did Elon Musk create Tesla and SpaceX? What are the underpinnings of the dynamism and creativity that pour out of MIT's innovation initiative? What is the story behind Google's driverless car and so many other dramatic and creative leaps forward at Amazon, Apple, and elsewhere? Fundamentally, what made the efforts of these and other leading enterprises so successful? These are profound questions, and unlocking the secret to these successes and repurposing their lessons for your own businesses could be transformational. Now, for most of us, when we think about innovation or transformation, we are drawn to the dramatic, landing a person on the moon. That drama is deserved. It represents the apex, or the purest form of innovation. It's exciting, it's inspiring, and it stretches our imagination, and it should. But I'm here to tell you that there is another form of innovation. It is vastly more common, it does not make the headlines, and though less dramatic, it can also be highly impactful, thrilling, and profitable. Now, as I look out at the audience, it dawns on me that I better step back, that some of you might harbor a considerable degree of circumspection. Most of you appear to be younger than I am, considerably younger than I am. Many of you are steeped in the digital world and profession. I, on the other hand, represent a very different profile. I am, shall we say, middle-aged, though the mortality table tells me it's even worse. I have worked in the same industry and within the same company for more than 3 decades. And to top it off, I work at a bank. Not exactly an industry perceived as a bastion of innovation, dynamism, and transformation. I have an office. I do not have a ping pong table, floppy chairs, or a basketball court. At Northern Trust, there is no free beer, nor are there free snacks. And I do not have multicolored Post-it notes all over the walls. And though I don't have any of these trappings, I eschew none of them. But do not be fooled or lulled. Do not judge a book by its cover. Innovation and transformation emanate from many quarters. I represent a company that has survived and indeed thrived for more than 125 years. A company that has performed at the very pinnacle of its peer group, outperforming rivals by virtually every measure: credit ratings, growth rates, client satisfaction, price-to-earnings ratio, shareholder returns, and more, for decades. A company that distinguished itself during the global financial crisis of 2008. One of only 2 banks in the top 20 in the United States that did not reduce its dividend. A clear imprimatur of our financial strength. A company whose stock price increased 60% since 2007 versus a bank peer group of 13%. And a global enterprise serving more than 20% of the Forbes 400 most affluent Americans, approximately 50% of S&P 500 corporations, and more than 80% of Dow 30 companies. Now, for perspective, corporate survival over time is not an accomplishment that can be taken for granted. According to US Census data covering more than 6 million companies, less than 0.5% attain a 100-year anniversary. Put another way, more than 99.5% of companies do not make it to their 100-year anniversary. Or said differently, if every person in this room represented a unique company, statistically, only 1 or 2 of your companies would survive in the same form and be here 100 years from now. Demographic changes, industry shifts, economic downturns, wars, recessions, depressions, corporate missteps, competition, and more all conspire against a company's ability to meet the 100-year mark. And in that vein, it's instructive to remember the admonition of Charles Darwin protege Leon Megginson, professor of management and marketing at Louisiana State University, who quipped, "It is not the most intellectual of the species that survives. It is not the strongest that survives, but the species that survives is the one that is best able to adapt and adjust to the changing environment in which it finds itself." And adaptation or change is something that I want to discuss with you today. You see, there is more than one way to make innovation and transformation happen, and results speak for themselves. The transformation journey I will profile emanated in Northern Trust's wealth management business, a business with thousands of competitors, each trying to convince clients that they understand markets the best, yet with little in the way of empirical evidence to support those claims. It's a flawed industry proposition, yet thousands of firms compete using the same paradigm, even when objective evidence belies the fact. At Northern Trust, we transformed our model. We created a new and different, goals-driven, holistic advice approach with dramatically positive results. Revenue and net income growth performed consistently at top quartile levels versus peers. We operate with industry-leading margins. Client satisfaction results jumped materially across every metric. And the assets that we manage on behalf of our goals-driven clients increased by more than 50% year over year in 2017. So what was the basis of our success? How did we do it? We went from yellow pads to iPads. We went from speaking at the client to dialoguing with the family. We went from talking in the arcane lexicon of finance to communicating in the language of our clients, focusing on their aspirations. We went from declaring our value for clients to demonstrating it. We went from showcasing our expertise to devising solutions to help clients achieve their objectives. The 129-year-old old gray lady of LaSalle Street did all of this and more. We increased client satisfaction from already high levels, outflanked competitors, built significant long-term competitive advantage, and performed exceptionally well for shareholders and other constituents. So what were the lessons that we learned on the journey? There were many, and our lessons may not all be applicable to the transformations that each of you may face. I hope, however, our experiences will stretch your thinking as you contemplate your own innovation and transformation journey. So let me share a few of our learnings and themes. First, I humbly and respectfully encourage you to remember that leaders set the tone in a transformation journey. They act, not simply state. They embolden rather than exclude. They energize and they invigorate. They establish the boundaries and the range of the possible, whether incremental or dramatic. True leaders in the transformation adventure earn that mantra through their actions, not through their titles. At Northern Trust, we found that establishing a unifying transformation umbrella or framework that everyone understands and with which everyone can align helps. People need to know in simple terms where they're trying to head. In our case, our theme was simplify, visualize, and quantify benefits for clients. We reinforced these themes consistently at every turn, and we used these themes as the prism through which to measure our progress continuously. Next, we embraced the importance of creating a winning culture. Jed Hoyer, Executive Vice President and General Manager for the Chicago Cubs and formerly with the Boston Red Sox, talks about this imperative. He emphasizes the criticality of makeup and character. The Cubs want competitors, players who care about the game and about each other. At Northern Trust, we want the same on our team. Caring deeply matters. We learn not to let real and pragmatic constraints get in the way. It's easy to come up with reasons why a transformation odyssey can't be achieved. If transformations were simple, they would have already been done. But do not let these constraints inhibit your thinking about the possible. We defined excellence in absolute and uncompromising terms. We defined excellence as what it should be, even if that's not what it could be right away. Striving for absolute excellence, even impossible excellence, sets a higher guidepost and roadmap for the future. We came to understand that comfort is the enemy of accomplishment. Learn to embrace discomfort rather than settling for the easier road on the transformation highway. We found that examining innovation through the client lens rather than the corporate lens is vital, and some call that human-centered design. I call it legacy-centered design. Drive to create a legacy, not just an incremental improvement. Our process embraced partners or colleagues who think differently. They stretch the possible. Innovation and transformation comes from many quarters, many angles. You know, when I was growing up, hitchhiking was an absolute no, according to my parents. Today, society has institutionalized hitchhiking into an everyday activity. We pull out our mobile devices, we click on Uber, Lyft, or another application, and we jump in a car with a complete and total stranger. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. And as Albert Einstein reminded us, the true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, but imagination. We also stumbled upon a contrarian lesson. Surround yourself with talented people possessing modest degrees of insecurity. They're paranoid. They're afraid to fail. They will outwork, outthink, outcheck, and outimagine the rest of us. As John Paul DeJoria reminds us, successful people do all the things unsuccessful people don't want to do. And we came to understand in the transformation sojourn that you will encounter adversity. You will be surrounded by doubters and naysayers. You will experience setbacks and self-doubt. You will fail, or perhaps better said, give up trying. We all do. But I challenge you to persevere. Challenge your limits. Don't limit your challenges. And in that process, sweat the details. Innovators understand that problems do not generally age well. Act to resolve them promptly. We also learned that transformers understand that star talent requires coaching on technique and execution. Star talent does not need coaching on motivation and effort. And we gleaned very important lessons about teamwork. Do not think in the I, but in the we. And I think the paradigm of we versus me is worth thinking about. It's a choice. It's an important decision. Do you want to be a collective and collaborative team, striving to reach goals and exceed expectations? Or do you want to be a collection of individuals where the me is paramount in the belief that this is the better framework for accomplishment? Now, for me, the answer has always been easy and obvious. I see it in sport. You cannot win a tug of war on your own. I see it in politics. Working together accomplishes more than a strident inability to compromise. I see it in business among top-performing companies and in so many other arenas. The power of we dwarfs the isolation of me. It is a choice amongst opposites. You see, me is just upside-down thinking, literally. Me is an anathema to we. It's a polar opposite. It's a different way of trying to solve problems. It is a selfish, narrow, and under-optimized way, and it is not the Northern Trust way. You see, when we is done well, it helps me. And this isn't an accident. Flip over we and see what you get. At Northern Trust, it is not that me does not matter. It is rather how you make me the best I can be, and that is through the collaboration of we. We also came to appreciate that successful leaders are optimists. They shine in the reflective light of success emanating from the people around them. They know that excellence is not a part-time job. It is not for the faint of heart or those incapable of grinding. You cannot be excellent only when it's convenient, only when you're interested, or only when you feel like it. Selecting a path of excellence is a choice. It takes dedication, it takes commitment, because excellence, you see, at its core, is an obsession. And we learned that transformers persevere beyond their accomplishments. They lead with actions, they lead with deeds, they lead with behaviors, and they lead by leaving footprints of accomplishment. And they transform in a manner that those who came before them and those who are here after they're gone would be proud. And so, as I wrap up, let me offer you the words of Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, who reminded us earlier this year that the pace of change has never been this fast, yet it will never be this slow again. Perpetual restlessness, though exhausting, is vital if you want to innovate, transform, and push to the next frontier. Thank you very much, and good luck.